Hello and welcome to the Grand Prix Los Angeles Semifinals. I'm Randy Bueller. I'm in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and we are getting ready to watch the mirror match. Eric Pay on the right of your screen has his take on the mono red aggro list, Boss Sly, if you will. Dennis Ulanov on the left has his take.
And Fire Drink Crusader is actually not the card you want in this matchup. It trades for everything, and it punches you in the face for 1 or 2 damage on the way out.
Yeah, it stings a little. Having that 1-mana 2/1 creature is spectacular against anybody who's even medium speed, much less slow. These decks are neither of those things.
The defensive Monastery Swift Spear there.
Swift Spear go? Wow. Now, do you have a read on how this matchup actually plays out? Like, what matters? Normally this deck is so much about just, exploding all of its permanents onto the field as quick as possible. Does it still play out that way here?
I think that it feels like the easiest way to win this game is to get out ahead and stay ahead. And Eric's clearly not doing this on turn 2, but imagine Eric's turn 2 play of like Monastery Swift Spear, Hammer Hands, attack you for 5.
Sure.
At that point puts him ahead in the race and makes it so Dennis won't necessarily be able to race effectively to give him that Eric's a turn ahead, and these decks are not good at blocking.
Yeah, so here's a Crowan Crusader.
But given that that's not happening, Eric could use Lightning Strike, makes it so Eric or Dennis playing a Hammer Hands or a Dragon Mantle is a little less effective. He could also cast Hordeling Outburst. That's one of the cards I called out that Eric has that Dennis does not have access to, which is a pretty big advantage.
It seems like if these decks can block, they want to. Is that fair?
Yeah, because the creatures are all pretty good at trading. They're not often gonna lose here. Like one creature's not gonna eat the other. Monastery Swift Spear is actually the biggest creature in the matchup, I think, because it's the one that it's a 1/2, but it can grow to a 2/3 or even 3/4, which is a pretty relevant size.
All right. Dennis chips away with that Swift Spear and then adds a Fire Drink Crusader of his own to the board. So him playing that Crusader pre-combat, is that a coordinated assault tail?
Oh yeah, for sure. Coordinated Assault's one of the bigger cards in the matchup too, and this is the one where Dennis has the edge. He has 2 of them versus Eric's 1. Both players have Scouring Sands in the sideboard, which is deal 1 to all your opponent's creatures. And actually, Hall of Triumph here is one of the bigger cards in the matchup as well.
That is now a 3/2 Fire Drink Crusader.
Except Dennis is in a spot where if Dennis has a way to make it so this Fire Drinker can't block, or even just like a Lightning Strike, he can just attack for so much damage.
Yeah, this is a super slow draw from Eric.
Yeah, he didn't really have much in the first couple turns. Dennis deciding how to use his resources. Given that he has Stokes in his deck, all his creatures, tap for mana. He's got a second Swift Spear, so he wants to maximize those.
Yeah, just crunch. Send him in. Swift Spear, Fire Drinker, and Crusader.
Now he's basically taking the Coordinated Assault out and just showing it to Eric, which is unfortunate because Eric can't really do anything about it.
Nope.
Because any block
and you're now
here,
positive he has it rather than just bluffing it because he wouldn't send the Crusader in without it?
I think sending in the Crusader is indicating he has it pretty strongly. I would be surprised.
The other 3 would at least trade with the Satyr. I mean,
right.
Any spell would make a Swift Spear trade with Satyr.
I mean, what Eric might want to just block the Crusader and force Dennis to have it and just punish him if he's bluffing here.
I mean, how else is he going to win the game? I'm with you, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to win, the game otherwise. So even though he probably loses if Dennis has it, he's probably losing that game no matter what.
Right.
He's taking too much damage otherwise.
And Dennis is less likely to bluff in a scenario where his opponent is essentially forced to call.
Yeah. Especially since Eric's hand has already indicated, he's already indicated that his hand's not good by the way his hand's played out. Yeah. So it's not like he's going to untap and play Hordeling Outburst or play 2 Lightning Strikes necessarily. That seems less likely. Eric calculating whether he can afford. He can also afford to maybe not block, because that makes it so if Dennis wants to cast the Coordinated Assault to deal 4 extra damage, you're at least not losing a card. And because if you don't block, you're only taking 5 here, which isn't the end of the world. Because if you then had
you're taking 5 if there's no spell. Coordinated Assault though.
Yeah, but if you take 9 if he casts Coordinated Assault, and he gets a Soldier token, but I think that's probably actually better. I think that Dennis is unlikely to bluff here. But his follow-up of a Frenzied Goblin makes it pretty
Jeez.
difficult.
May not even have the option to block next turn. I see at least 2 mountains in Eric's hand. He is flooded.
Yeah, he drew 4 lands, so he's horribly flooded.
Yeah.
Playing a 2-drop or a 1-drop and then passing with Stoke the Flames up, that's a decent counter to Coordinate Assault, or at least makes it a little less brutal.
What about land go?
Land go is less good, because even if you have Stoke, Dennis can just attack with everything. He doesn't care if one of his cards gets, gets stoked here. And Dennis has at least 1 Stoke in his hand, so he only has to deal, 8 damage to put Eric in Stoke range, or 10 damage rather, and he's so close to that just on the board. You can also use Frenzied Goblin, so he doesn't even have to use Coordinated Assault. I don't see Eric coming back from this.
No, it seems like you just shove everybody into the red zone, pay the red mana for Frenzied Golem to turn off the Satyr's ability to block, and then let's look across. What you got?
Dennis missed a land drop. That's a lot. It's better to miss your 3rd land drop than to hit your 5th land drop in this matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Might even be better to miss your 3rd than to hit your 4th, actually.
For sure. I mean, there's nothing in the deck that costs more than 2 unless you count Stoke. Which doesn't even really cost more than 2.
They each have, I believe, each have 1 Hall of Triumph. Actually, Dennis doesn't have Hall of Triumph. I think Hall of Triumph is decent. It's not insane because it costs so much mana, but it seems like it could, it could go along with a good board force to end up making
Here
the game pretty
comes
good.
1, 2, 3, 4 for Stoke the Flames.
Presumably
he's doing
on Frenzied Goblin if he's doing it pre-combat.
Yeah, that was what I think is going on as well. Yup. Now Dennis lines up his attack. This is still... Satyr looks like it could potentially block and kill one of these creatures, any of these creatures. It could eat the Crusader, but you, me, and pretty much everybody watching, and Eric Pay, all put Dennis Ulanov on having a Coordinated Assault in his hand.
Yeah, it seems highly unlikely he doesn't have it. And Eric tried to pretend like he could play around it for a while, and then realized, there's just not much he can do.
Look at that! It's Coordinated Assault. Target this.
How shocking.
Pump these guys.
The Swift Spears get bigger.
Swift Spears get bigger. I get a Soldier. I get First Strike, so your Satyr's gonna die. Oh, your Satyr's gonna take damage in addition.
Yeah, this is a pretty hopeless board position, especially since Eric had the Fire Drinker Satyr. Of all the creatures he could have, he had the one that gets punches him in the face for 2 when it dies.
All right. How much life does Eric have left now?
Looks like he's gonna end up with 7 life. The Fire Drinkers dealing 3, and then the 2 Monastery Swift Spears are each dealing 2.
I agree.
But
oh, and then the Satyr damage.
So 5 life,
yeah,
potentially.
And
but
looks at 1 more card and scoops him up.
Either way, there's not a whole lot he could do about that.
All right, these guys are going to sideboard, and we will go take a live look in at our other semifinal.
Oh, I see Hornets in play.
Hornets? That seems good for Daniel Scheid. His opponent has a Sorin that has made a vampire. His opponent has a Siege Rhino. And it looks like Abzan Charm. Oh yeah, these guys have been going at it for a while. This matchup plays out pretty grindy.
Well, I see a Pelucranos with 4 dice on it, or a dice on 4 on it. So that this does not look good for Carlo, unless the life totals are something very odd. Daniels looks like he's very well ahead here.
Well, he's turning his creatures sideways. He's turning all of his creatures sideways.
And probably not at Sorin. Or potentially like two of the Wasps are, but
Chump blocks, Siege Rhino chump blocks Pelucranos.
Yeah, it looks like it's just all
Sorin,
attacking Carlo
did not
here.
get attacked. Here's Abzan Charm. Abzan Charm to draw 2? Is that what's going on?
I mean, unless Carlo has main deck end hostilities, which he does not, it's going to be tough to get out of this.
Yeah.
He does have some sweet main deck cards. He's got 1 Nissa World Waker in his main deck. That's a nice one.
Thought seizes away an Elvish Mystic just to get some more information, and then scoops him up. So Daniel Scheid takes a 1-0 lead. Looking for a spot in the finals and a date with Mono Red.
And, his Mono Red matchup actually doesn't look that bad. I think having Lightning Strikes and Angers and even Crater's Claws as a relevant 2-mana spell, as well as a lot of just green blockers,
Sure.
seems like it's pretty decent. he doesn't have life gain, so in that sense he's vulnerable to getting burned out. But Anger of the Gods is one of the most effective cards I can imagine against this mono red deck.
Yeah, I agree. That and Drown are both insane. I mean, it's nice to be able to trade 1 for 1, but being able to sweep and to do it for just 3 mana seems great.
It seems crucial, especially since this red deck plays with the board so much. It's not, it's not the red deck with 8 creatures and all burn spells. It's a red deck with 6 burn spells and all creatures.
Yeah. He's fully 4 Mystics too, Daniel is. 4 Mystics, 4 Caryatids. He's got Rattle Claws to accelerate. He's 4 Courser.
This is the full 6 Mystics. Yeah, I guess Courser is life gain, so you can't overlook that. But that feels just so standard for all the green decks that it's almost like not worth mentioning. Like, yeah, of course they get life off Courser.
Yeah, I'm with you. His matchup looks decent.
So I think that
not there yet though. Got to win one of these sideboarded games against.
Right.
Carlo.
I think the red decks would be slightly favor playing against Abzan than playing against this green red deck.
You'd almost have to assume their Abzan matchup is good, or they wouldn't be sitting here in the semifinals. So much Abzan running around the top of the Swiss this weekend, and 4 of them in the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is a function of how many got played. So I think that...
I mean, part of it, but it wasn't really that much more than Jeskai, was it?
Right. If you looked at the metagame, the Jeskai decks, again, underperformed in the top 8. I'm curious to see what that looks like in the top 16, top 32, because I feel like that's just as relevant. I mean...
Agreed.
But
I mean, all the guys we know, all the Platinum pros,
none
of them... I mean, the ones who got into the top 16 was Kibler on Teamer, was Chapin, who's on Abzan.
Ben Stark had a 12-3 record. He didn't top 16, but I think that looking at by tie breaks is not that relevant when you're trying to figure out
a deck. Ben is 12-3, that totally counts. He's tied with Brian and Pat.
Right. But yeah, I mean, also, you do have to adjust for the fact that if like 7 Platinum pros played Jeskai and they didn't do that well, like that actually punishes them because, if you assume that they're among the best players in the tournament, then if they underperform, that actually says more about the deck.
Right. They should, on average, overperform.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I definitely think on the whole Abzan versus Jeskai debate that was coming in, Abzan came out on top.
That's what it seems like.
And I mean, it was, if you lump together Abzan aggro and Abzan mid-range, it was a bigger chunk of the field than Jeskai, or at least on day 2. I don't think we have day 1 numbers. I think the only day 1 number we had was the 3 buy players, where Jeskai was by far the most popular.
Yeah. And that, again, there's only 33 3-buy players.
Sure.
So.
Small chunk of the field, but an interesting data point. Yeah, Abzan aggro plus Abzan mid-range, and to say there's 4 Abzan in the top 8, you have to lump those together because it's kind of 2 and 2.
It is, yeah,
and the lines are blurring.
I mean, especially if Carlo has Rakshasa Death Dealer in his sideboard, he can board in those, and and with those and Fleece Mains, he kind of looks aggro-ish. He's just missing the Anafenzas.
All true. And Tamada had Coursers alongside the deck
and he went the other direction. He was the aggro deck, but also had Coursers. So and after board, he could board up some more expensive cards, and all of a sudden look more like the mid-range deck. So
Isaac Sears was pretty much the pure aggro. He was just
he had Herald of
Torment,
Ulcerate, and he had Sigrist List. He had all the cards that really just want to beat down. All right. Looks like these mono red mirror is ready to begin again. This is not the mono red mirror where you want to be on the draw. I've actually seen those exist.
Yes.
Where all the players have fire bolts and all these good attrition-y cards.
Yeah, way back in the day when they both had curse scrolls, you also wanted to draw.
Yeah.
That one became super attrition-y.
But given that we're talking all haste creatures and hammer hands and whatnot, it seems a little optimistic to try to be on the draw and get that extra card. Also, when both players are playing like Dragon Mantles and Titan Strength, that sort of thing, you really want your opponent to be tapped out so that you can land those without worrying about a lightning strike. Let's look at our sideboard. So Eric Pay has Searing Bloods, Magma Spray, and 1 Scouring Sand in his sideboard, as well as 2 Lightning Strikes. So that's a decent amount of removal, though I don't know how good Lightning Strike is in general. I mean, it's 2 mana to kill what's often going to be a 1 mana creature.
Searing Blood, though, sounds spectacular.
Yeah, Searing Blood sounds like almost a 2-for-1, just getting the 3 damage through. Whereas...
What's the Searing Blood count on the other side?
Dennis also has the 3 Searing Bloods.
Okay.
Has 2 Scouring Sands, which is by far the best card. I mean, it's the electrickery of Standard right now. And he has an extra Coordinated Assault, which also looks pretty good, and a Magma Spray. So it looks like Dennis actually brings in more cards that are relevant.
So he'll be +2 Coordinated Assaults after sideboarding instead of +1.
and an extra Scouring Sands, which also looks really good. Eric Pay has, 2 Hordeling Outbursts and a Hall of Triumph, which those combine to be very good in the matchup. So I think there's a slight edge to Dennis. The fact that he's up a game makes him a heavy favorite regardless. But I think that, both him and Dennis have edges in different spots here.
Dennis is also cheating on land a little bit more. I think of these as 18 land decks normally. Dennis only has 17.
Well, it paid off for him last game. I mean, he was stuck on 2, and that was much better than,
I don't think he was
Eric's
stuck on 2.
On 5. Yeah,
he
right.
He was correctly on exactly 2 or something.
He was stuck on 2 in quotes.
Yeah, no, I think you'd rather have 3 than 2, but you'd rather have 2 than 4.
Yeah, I believe that's accurate. It's like the mono red deck that most of our team played at the last Pro Tour M15. Mm-hmm. Like Ben described it, every time you drew 3 land you won, and every time you drew 6 land you lost. So that was kind of how the deck was.
That was essentially...
It was close to this. It was playing, this is back when you had Burning Tree Emissary, so it had Burning Tree Emissary and Fire Fist Striker, and as well as Chain to the Rocks and Boros Charm. So it had more 2s than these decks do, but there was, incentives to do so, like Burning Tree Emissary. Wait, did Eric choose to draw? He's not looking at his hand.
He did. Eric Pay chose to draw.
Well, I mean, that shows that he's aware that people have done this sort of thing before, so it's interesting to see that, he is running it.
Foundry Street Denizen for Dennis Ulanov.
So he thinks this is much more an attrition battle. Maybe Scouring Sands makes that so, but with only 1 to lean on, that seems a little dicier. Maybe the Searing Bloods also kind of do that. A Crone Crusader also seems like one of the best cards. If you can stick in a Crone Crusader and start enchanting it, you're drawing basically extra cards, because each of the 1/1s trades for a real card.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, and Dennis is like, no, sir, no Crusader for you.
Yeah, and even if Lightning Strike, happened in response to a Hammer Hands, that's still, you're turning a Hammer Hands into a 1/1, which is not that bad.
Yeah, not interested in letting Eric untap and target that with anything. Eric has 2 mana go.
So Eric's on the control plan, maybe.
Okay, he chose draw.
He chose draw. He's got surely a lot more removal spells in his deck. He's, not playing creatures. He's got double Dragon Mantle in hand, which could also explain some of this. But
here's a Swift Spear and a Frenzied Goblin.
Swift Spear just seems awesome in this deck too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it dodges a lot of the 1 toughness punishing cards, and it's just routinely just a 2/3 or a 3/4 for 1 mana.
Yeah, hits super hard.
It's seeing some legacy in modern play as well. I have to admit, I cast Swift Spear this week, so.
I had somebody asking me whether it belongs to Delver List and Vintage. And my knee jerk was to say no, but then I'm like, how much does it attack for most turns? 3, 4?
Swift Spear and like a Mox and a Preordain,
right?
Attacking for 3 on turn 1. That doesn't sound that bad. Ooh, this is
Did he Searing Blood the Swift
Spear? A risky Searing Blood, because Coordinated Assault gets him out of it. I mean, I think it's just basically just Coordinated Assault or Titan Strength, which is still a lot of spells, but you have to imagine some number of cards like Titan Strength may have gone out. That one in particular seems like it's potentially less effective. I think Dennis is Hollywooding a little here. If he has
it, he would Windmill Slam it.
I assume
there's
so.
no way he has Coordinated Assault and declines it here. No way.
Yeah, that seems unlikely. I do find it funny when people really tank in situations like to try to represent something. It's like, no, if you had it, you would do it.
Right.
That being said, maybe he has played this matchup more and has it and is like, Coordinated Assault's 2 for 1, I'm just going to wait.
Is it though?
But you don't get to take 3 damage then? That seems really tough to avoid casting it there. Eric's still in the control plan. I don't know how well it's working out. I mean, if he's burning a creature every turn.
But I mean, he may have just had a draw with only 1 creature in it.
Yeah, and then with the double
Dragon
Dragon
Mantle. 1 creature double Dragon Mantle and some burn spells.
Yeah, you would definitely
keep
that. I mean, especially if it's in a Crone Crusader.
Right.
He had Magma Spray in hand, and he chose not to use it this turn. He can also start cycling Dragon Mantles on his opponent's creatures, but that's a little riskier because the creature gets the ability. Eric Pay possibly facing that decision right now. If he's going to kill the creature afterwards, it's not that bad, but it kind of locks him into doing so. Yeah, it looks like it.
Yep. Dragon Mantle your Frenzied Goblin.
And Frenzied Goblin's the slightly higher value one right now, given that Dennis didn't play a creature last turn.
Sure. Eric just wants to draw a card. Dragon Mantle lets you draw a card when it comes into play. Really nice if you're targeting something like a Necroan Crusader with a heroic ability. In this case, though, he just desperately wants the card. It was a mountain. Not really what he was looking for.
You can hope that Dennis spends a bunch of mana making Frenzied Goblin like a 4/1 and then Magma spraying
Then
it.
you kill
But
it.
I don't think that's going to happen unless Dennis has absolutely nothing to do with his mana, which is not the case.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to Fire Breathe. It's below doing everything else you can do with your mana. All right, pre-combat Fire Drinker Crusader. That'll give the Foundry Street Denizen +1. Here comes 3 power.
I think Eric's going to be casting one of his spells here. I don't think you really want... Unless you have Scouring Sands at the ready, which would be awesome here. I think the Magma Spray has to come out. Or maybe a Lightning Strike. I mean, Lightning Strike is a little more expensive here, so there's
If he's got the mana and nothing else to do with it. You elect for the Magma Spray. He's worried about some future Swift Spear where the 3rd point of damage might matter.
technically exiled, though I don't believe there's a card in either player's deck that cares in any way about that.
Nice.
All right.
And the lights go out. We still seem to have power over here, though.
We have power. Less
no
light than
lights.
that. Wow, this game's getting really interesting. Oh, actually, the players have stopped because they can't see anything either.
Sunday night at the Grand Prix, always a bit of an adventure.
Yeah, indeed.
It's been a fun Grand Prix weekend.
It has, actually. I've enjoyed watching the standard. You know, from the coverage booth, when I do coverage, it makes me want to do more coverage, but it also makes me want to play, which is kind of weird. So it's hard for me to, you know, I can only do so much. I don't get to do both. Like, I always have to make that choice. All right. Looks like the lights are flickering back to life here.
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised with Standard. Certainly thought we might see a lot of just Jeskai and Abzan. And
I mean, we saw a lot of Abzan, but it's still not so much that I'm ready to call the format like in any way. I mean, I think
Agreed.
there's just like multiple Abzan decks. They play differently. These games are pretty interactive. There's less like, you know, games where that feel like they're decided on turn 2 or turn 3.
And while Abzan does seem to have had the best weekend, or at least coming into the top 8 anyway, there's still plenty of other stuff going on. I mean, Green Red Monsters is showing up. Mono Red is showing up. There's so many of these decks that are just showing up and doing their thing. Almost doesn't matter. Okay, maybe Abzan is the best deck, but it's not even clear how much that matters.
But the thing is, it's fine to have a best deck. If you think there's not going to be a best deck in a format, I mean, you're deluding yourself. That's how formats work.
Something has to be the best deck.
Yeah.
By definition, even.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little blurrier. Sometimes it's like, well, these 3 decks are kind of like sharing the title of the best deck.
Right.
But saying that, oh man, you know, this sucks, Abzan's the best deck, it's like, well, no, someone's going to be the best deck. You can target it. Yeah. Like, Abzan doesn't look like it's winning this Grand Prix. It might. It can come back against Green Red, but let's say it doesn't. Then we're going to have the winner be, you know, Green Red Monsters or Mono Red.
Right.
And given that people have a target, that they can develop different decks. I mean, this field was going to be a lot like the Pro Tour field, so I think people built based on that. But after this weekend, people actually get to make a lot of other decisions.
Yeah, I do think Abzan has the advantage that you can customize it based on whatever you think the target is.
Yep.
Right. You can try to go more aggressive. You can try to go